Hi, I'm Gary Sims, author of the book Learning FreeNAS and the webmaster of the learnfreenas.com website. Today we're going to take a video tour of the FreeNAS web interface. Here is the interface when you first start up FreeNAS. This is the system information page. We can see that we're running version 0.69, which is currently in beta testing, and we can see how much CPU we're using, how much memory we're using, and how much disk space is available. A general system information page. Here on the left hand side is the different sections and the menu items, and we're just going to go through them one at a time and quickly mention what they can do. Starting with System General. This is a page that allows you to set the host name, you can change the password, you can set which port the web GUI works on, and so on and so on. Next is the advanced page. Here there's a lot more different things you can do. You can disable the console menu, you can disable whether the system beeps when it first turns on, and there's a whole bunch of different things here you can play with. Static routes is a place where you can define static routes to different places on your network. Hosts is a place where you can define a host file, so you don't have to use DNS. Firmware allows you to do firmware upgrades, which are available on the freenas.org website. Here in Backup Restore, you can download your configuration file, save it, and you can upload it again if you need to. Here is to reset the FreeNAS back to its factory settings. That means there's nothing configured at all. Finally, the last two are to reboot the machine and to shut down the machine. And you can also schedule that. It doesn't have to be now, it can be in a week's time, a month's time, whatever. The next section is interfaces. This is about the Ethernet interfaces you have. Here I have just one card called LAN, and then here you can configure that card LAN itself, giving it an IP address, how does it obtain that IP address, IP6 configuration, and so on. Then one of the most important sections in FreeNAS is the disk management section, and here you are able to add disks to the system, and here you can see I've already got a single 1 gig disk added to this test system of mine. You can also configure software RAID here. It supports JBOD, just a bunch of disks, RAID 0, RAID 1, RAID 5, you can see different information about them, that's all configured there. FreeNAS also supports encryption. Here you can add encryption to a particular drive. You can format the drives. You can format them in different types, though FreeNAS recommends that you only use UFS and that formatting other types isn't supported. And after you've got a disk formatted and ready, you can mount it and you decide where it's mounted, what name it's called, and here you've got other tools for doing things like checking the file system. The next section is the different services that are available. Here we can, this is Windows networking, we can enable it and we can define shares so they appear for Windows machines. Next is the FTP networking, we can enable the FTP server and define it here. There's also Secure Shell, which is good for doing Secure Shell logins and is also useful for other synchronization protocols and for secure copy. Here we can define NFS, which would be useful for connecting to Linux or to Solaris or FreeBSD. Apple networking we can also define here, so you can connect your Apple Mac directly to the FreeNAS server without having to use Windows networking. rsync is the synchronization protocol. There's 3 types of rsync here. You can set up an rsync server, you can be a client, or you can be local, which means it copies on a schedule from one disk to another inside of the FreeNAS. So all directions are covered with the rsync client. Next there's the Unison, which is another synchronization protocol, can be enabled here and configured here. After that is iSCSI. FreeNAS can act as an iSCSI target, which allows others iSCSI initiators to connect to the FreeNAS server and use the hard disk on the FreeNAS server over iSCSI. There's also a universal plug and play media server, which can serve your different media files to different media centers and so on through your home network, anything that supports UPnP, including the Xbox. There's also dynamic DNS configuration. If your IP address isn't fixed and you want to have it refreshed, you can use one of these services like diedns.org or so on, so that you can configure that. There's also SNMP available for doing SNMP monitoring. SNMP, of course, is Simple Network Management Protocol, and also you can configure a secondary web server to allow access to your data files over HTTP. and you have to be careful that of course the web interface and the web server can never use the same IP, the port number, so you have to define two different ones there. Next section is about access. You can define users, and there are already some predefined groups, and you can add some add new groups that allow you to define who has access to different network resources. They have to provide a username and password, and also you can use Microsoft Active Directory for that authentication process, and this allows you to do that. There is also a page for LDAP, but LDAP at the moment isn't working. It says here help needed. So if you want to do some help for FreeNAS, you can think about doing the LDAP. Finally, there's the status page section here. System we've already seen. Then there's the list of the processes that are running on the machine. Here we can have a quick look at them. There's a light HTTP server, which is the web GUI. We've got NFS running there. We've got DHCP client and so on. That's just the Unix processes that are running. Interfaces tells you a bit of information about the Ethernet cards that you have running, and then disks give you some summary information about the disks that you have configured. I've just got one here, it's online, so that's good. If I had a wireless adapter it would show up here, but I don't have one. Here we can have some graphics of different things. There's the LAN. You can also get CPU load, seeing how the CPU is being used, and also we can configure email reports to be sent at different times, which contains information about the system information, different log files, so you can receive those automatically. There's two more sections at the end here which are normally minimized. One is for looking at the diagnostics, and you can see different log files that are here, and there's also different information that's available about different devices here, telling me about my IDE drives, tell me about the status of the iSCSI initiator and so on. And the last two are to be able to ping and to use ARP from the web interface. And then finally, in the advanced thing, you can actually just run Unix commands or FreeBSD commands directly from here, and it says here this function is unsupported and use it at your own risk. Really, you should never really have to go into there, and neither should you ever have to go into this edit file, which allows you just to edit a file on the system. But really the web interface handles all of the things that you should really ever use. Okay, and back to the system page to show us where we are. So that's the FreeNAS server. Very quickly, just to see how it looks, you can get a quick idea of the different functionality that's available, what you can do with it. Obviously there's lots more to discover in each individual section, but I hope that was a useful overview. Thanks for watching. You can get more tips on using FreeNAS at the learnfreenas.com website, and my book Learning FreeNAS is available on Amazon. Thank you.